Hello everyone and welcome to Battle of the Beasts All Generation episode number 7. Today we got an interesting battle today as we have two beasts I actually kind of like. So this is a little stable ground, I guess, to where a interesting fight is to try and hook you guys back in, because we still got a fair amount of not very interesting fights to do, but with some popular beasts. So now we've gone off from the really bad fights that I wasn't excited to do to ones that I'm kind of okay on doing. But first, we got an interesting fight to do, and that is, of course, representing Series 13, Book number 5, Vermok the Spiteful Scavenger, versus representing Series 19, The Kingdom of Dragons, Book number 2, Korvax the Sea Dragon. Now, both of these beasts are both relatively interesting, because whilst they're not the best of their series, and they never will be, and probably closer to the worst half for both of them for me, of each series to me, they're still quite good in my opinion. So they're the high points of they're the low point of their respective series, but high points of their respective series as well, if that makes sense. So what I can really say about these beasts are, well, I like my dragons, that's why I like Korvax, but I also like the design on Vermok, their stat department.
Vermok, the Spiteful Scavenger. This giant rat beast is one of the horrors awaiting anyone brave enough to walk the warrior's road. The few who make it as far as the lost city will need to watch out for a giant rat with huge tusks jutting from his nostrils, whose sharp teeth are its most dangerous weapon, and whose twin scaly tails are its most crafty. Now, on to the stats. Tail Whip, constricting tails that grasp the smaller foes, sharp tusks, sharp fangs, sharp spines, wall crawling, thick hide, highly intelligent, resurrection, which is removed from Battle of the Beasts, making one deadly opponent in the tournament.
Korvax, the Sea Dragon. In the frozen waters of Draconia, the Kingdom of Dragons, dwells Korvax, an ice-breathing sea dragon. As if that wasn't terrifying enough, her transparent body displays the poor sea creatures she has consumed. Questers must be very careful to avoid suffering the same fate. Now, on to the stats. Flight, agility, ice breath, tail whip, sharp fangs, sharp claws, regenerate limbs on contact with water. Fangs infect foes, causing cold on them. Body composed of ice, cold adaptation, and underwater breathing make her one deadly opponent in the tournament.
3, 2, 1!
Vermok versus Korvax. Let's get into this. Both of these beasts will be fighting each other in a watery forest area. And I say that so we can use Korvax's ability of regenerative limbs, and Vermok was agile as well. Is the water will be relatively shallow. So what Korvax will have to do if she wants to regenerate a piece of her, she'll need to actually dunk herself into the water and just lay there just to get that wound covered up and heal herself back up. Let's say she loses one of her arms, or claws as it's called, she'll need to stick that wound in the water and then it will regenerate. But if it's on her back, she needs to lie down on her back just to do it. But with that's the drawback with her regenerative ability. So, as both the chamber doors open, Korvax shoots out of the sky entrance and just roars into the arena, whilst Vermok pounces out of the his chamber door and stares up at the icy dragon before him. Korvax instantly sees Vermok and shoots an ice breath towards Vermok. Korvax hits the ground just before Vermok and he makes his way towards him. Vermok is seeing that the grass that is hitting is turned into icicles almost instantly, and Vermok realizes Korvax would try and use that as a weapon. So he jumps out of the way of the ice breath, and using the icy blades of grass, he slams his tails against it, causing them to uproot themselves and fire themselves directly towards Korvax. Korvax uses her wing to deflect it, and it just bounces off almost instantly. Korvax then comes down to Vermok's level, and using her claws and tail, she smashes through each tree and lobs them towards Vermok, whilst Vermok is scurrying around. And each time Vermok runs past Korvax goes in for a swipe, but Vermok is quicker and slices at Korvax. Korvax is getting very heavily wounded and is starting to make her way towards the watery area to heal herself. However, Vermok is not giving in and runs up behind Korvax and jumps on top of her and starts scratching and biting at Korvax, whilst Korvax turns her neck around and bites down on Vermok. Vermok immediately releases grip of Korvax and hides into the bushes below to try and warm himself up from the intense cold he's feeling within him, giving Korvax the time to make her way towards the watery area just to heal her wounds completely. Korvax, feeling all healed now, gets out of the water and shoots an ice breath directly towards where she last saw Vermok. However, Vermok was long gone. And Vermok was actually behind Korvax and goes to attack Korvax again, but Korvax saw it coming and moved her head out of the way, and using her tail whip, she slams it into Vermok and sends him flying straight into the icy bush, where it shatters into millions of shards. Korvax makes her way towards Vermok, flying and ready to attack Vermok. Vermok is able to get back up, and using his tails, he wraps each tail around of each of Korvax's wings and pulls her down to the ground, and using his head, he bites down onto Korvax's neck, but Korvax's long neck was able to move out of the way. And right before Vermok can go on for another bite, Korvax shoots an ice breath directly in Vermok's mouth, causing him to release his grip and try and get rid of cough out all the cold. However, Korvax is already one step ahead, and using her tail, she wraps it around Vermok's body and flies, pulling Vermok up with her. She does a somersault in the midair and slams Vermok back down on the ground. Vermok lands directly on the ground, solid landing already, and Korvax has shot an ice breath directly towards Vermok. It's too quick for Vermok to even get out of the way. But when the smoke clears, Vermok is now encased completely in ice, unmoving, can only move his eyes. Korvax has wrapped her tail around a nearby tree and lifts it up with her claws as well and slams it directly down on Vermok, smashing himself and his icy prison into pieces. Korvax makes her way back to her chamber, satisfied with her victory. Korvax the Sea Dragon has won and Vermok has lost. Now, whilst I wouldn't be too fussed on who won, I think it was obvious Korvax was going to win because of her abilities being a hell of a lot more better. But I think Vermok still gave Korvax a decently good fight. And whilst Vermok didn't win, he did relatively alright for this fight, whilst he was at a bit of a disadvantage. If there's something that I would say that Vermok could have used to his advantage, if he can trick Korvax into freezing that water where she heals herself, then maybe Vermok could have won. But as Vermok couldn't do that, didn't have the time to breathe to actually trick Korvax into doing that, Korvax was able to win. But with that, that's all for this time. If you like what you saw, leave a like, leave a comment, don't forget to subscribe, press the notification bell down in the corner below, and I'll see you next time.